We go. Good morning. So before I kick off, thinking about Lego, I have a 10-year-old. We love Lego, and I've noticed over the last few years it's getting smaller and smaller, and so small that even I can't pick it up with those little flowers. So maybe, Mehdi, in your next one you can have little Lego as well. I'm very excited to be with you this morning. I'm very excited to be back in Melbourne. So I'm a Kiwi. I don't have the lovely French accent. But I was in Melbourne for 10 years and I did my doctorate here. So if you're wondering what it was in, photonics or fibre optics. More than happy to talk to you ad nauseum about that. And then I've been in Sydney for the last 12 years. I've worked at IBM, I've worked at Google, and I'm very happy to be part of Deloitte. So today, what I'd like to do is kick off with a memory lane. Do you remember back at school breathing into lime water and it turned cloudy? And why did it turn cloudy? It's good old carbon dioxide. So for most of my talk today, I'll be focusing on that carbon element all the way through, and in particular looking at how to turn our IT from cloudy to clear with cloud. So what do I mean? Well, my favourite saying is cloud makes the impossible possible. And I'll focus today mostly on our common burning platform. There's a pun there, and I'm hoping you're all with me on the sustainability element around how to achieve our net zero ambition. We have a big 2030 target as a nation, and how digital transformation technologies like cloud can help us do that. We need to stop thinking about cloud as a cost and technology initiative and start thinking about it as an environmental and sustainable one. And that's quite a big mindset shift. How am I going to do it today? So I'm going to frame my talk by looking at some figures and facts from 3 different reports that we've done. They're exciting, don't worry. And so with that in mind, what I want to do is take a bit of a deep dive into the economic impacts of both climate action and inaction. So in my experience, facts drive action. And these recent report insights from one of our Deloitte reports have got some really big numbers. They put a number on what would happen if we both take climate action but also don't take it, and found that rather than climate inaction or climate action actually being a drain on the economy, it would actually boost it. So putting a number on it, if we don't do anything, the drain will be about $96 trillion by 2050. Or for us, another huge number, 86 billion. Oh, gain, sorry, if we do climate action. See the numbers? I've got to refer to my notes. How does this happen? Well, a couple of ways. So capital spent on repairing climate damage means that new investments in productivity go down. It slows economic growth. Versus progressing on that decarbonisation journey, which includes transforming those supply chains, business operations, innovation, products, new skills, new people, and with that comes economic growth. Encouragingly, our business leaders actually agree. So we've looked at it, and 78% of our Australian CXOs are concerned about climate change, which is great because that's higher than the global average of about the top 10 countries polled. So excellent. We've got the motivation, we've got the drive, and this should move us from being 59th out of 64 countries on the last 2022 Climate Change Performance Index. So we've got a long way to go, but we've got great opportunity to get there. How are we going to do that? A whistle tour. Green the IT. And I'm sure many of you know these kinds of figures, but essentially this is so important as our traffic and data workloads, internet traffic, are going to keep rising exponentially. 97% of businesses that use cloud report positive environmental impacts. Great. And yet only 1 in 5 list improving sustainability as a key benefit of cloud tech. So there's a big disconnect there. We know that on average, cloud is 5 times more energy efficient than data centres. and 4.5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions can be removed each year just by switching from on-prem to cloud. How? Well, due to the operational efficiency of a lot of those data centres, the infrastructure, the fact that some of them run on renewable energy, all that leads to cloud being about 98% more carbon efficient than on-prem. So step one, reduce business emissions by moving from on-prem to cloud. But there's also a step two, which I'm particularly passionate about, which is greening with the IT. So what's this about? Well, we did another report, and this is quite interesting. We're getting warmer, pun intended, and leaning into the applications of cloud. So in this report, we looked at 600 different companies across the region, and it showed that we could get a 160 billion increase in economy by 2024, which is not that far away, and a whole bunch of that for Australia, if we just leverage the cloud technology that's available right now in businesses. There's nothing new, it's already there. There's this Ferrari sitting there waiting to go, but it's not being leveraged. How? Because the use of AI, Internet of Things, analytics, big data, you know that's all powered by cloud. Well, so what? Well, these cloud-enabled technologies are really vital in preparing these businesses for the future. So 80% of businesses say by implementing cloud, they were better prepared to address challenges, better prepared to innovate, and better prepared to scale. That's really applicable to climate change, which is disruptive, requires innovation, and requires scale globally. And this translates into economic productivity. So cloud is key to not only green the IT, but green with the IT, unlock that business potential. And how is that relevant to sustainability? Which brings me to the third report, which is quite close to my heart. So like I said, I joined Deloitte earlier this year. I came from Google. I was working on this report with Google, and then I finished it on the Deloitte side. Why did we do this report? Because there's so much information about Europe, EMEA, North America, the US, what they're doing with sustainability, but there's a bit of a gap in APAC, and we have quite a different carbon footprint. Also, like I said before, we as a nation had that original 28% reduction in greenhouse gases. That's now 43% by 2030. And how might we do that? How might technology help? How might cloud help? So we launched it in May. We looked at 500 businesses across Australia and New Zealand, across a whole bunch of different industries, and found some really interesting things. 34% of businesses still don't have a climate strategy. So I'm going to pause there. Raise your hand if you do have a climate strategy. Awesome. That's about a third. So we're, great. We've obviously got a way to go. Interestingly, the ones that don't have a climate strategy said they wouldn't actually look at doing one in the next 3 years anyway, which baffles me. Interestingly, again, of those which do have a strategy, 60% haven't seen emissions really change. So we need to think differently. Kudos for getting a climate strategy. Let's think differently about how to use cloud to get those emissions down in that strategy. Like I said, the decisions most businesses made to go to cloud has been based on cost and technology. We need to shift it to be a more sustainable, economical one. Green with the IT, green the IT. And the applications of cloud, this is my passion area. What can you do with this Ferrari that's probably sitting in your engine in sustainability? And on this slide, what we looked at was at just 12, there's more use cases that sit on top of cloud, specifically in the sustainability area, and give a massive dividend for businesses. I want to focus on 3, but more than happy to chat away on all of these in the break. Let's look at Lush. So for those that don't know, Lush is a bath, body and skincare store based in it's here, but it's also based from the UK. It's package free. You'll know it because you walk past it and it smells delicious, and you walk into it and they don't sell, basically you chop up the soap into whatever kind of size that you want. Because there's a huge focus on sustainability for Lush, and they wanted to continue to be package free, it's a challenge for me as a user because I can't read what's in it. I don't know how to use it. Enter Lush Lens, where with my mobile, I can scan the piece of soap, the bath bomb, whatever it is, and the AI actually will pick up in the lens and just display on my phone how to use it, what's in it, etc., etc. That sounds really easy, except for the fact that every piece of soap is handmade, every piece of soap is different. So the AI required to detect the image is quite significant, and the only way that you can do that is if you've got cloud underneath to power through processing all those images. So this application of virtual technology, you can apply it anywhere. Clothes, hair, furniture, the list goes on. And what that will do will minimise waste, but also minimise transport. There won't be deliveries, as many. So carbon emissions goes down. So there's a flow-on impact from things like this. Another one I love, so let's be honest, online shopping, COVID, hit it pretty hard. It could have dramatically impacted transport emissions. UPS got on the bus pretty quickly, actively invested in our cloud to look at decarbonisation. And here's some amazing stats. 21 million packages every day, 200 countries, 120 pickups per day for a single driver. So what they did was lean in and use machine learning to essentially pick the most optimum route for that driver. That saved a whole bunch in cost, 400 million, but it saved so much more in fuel, 39 million litres at least of fuel. Why do you need cloud? Because to sift through, there's 1 billion data points daily required to pick those optimum routes for those drivers. You can't do it without cloud power. A couple more. So drones, two cases I'd like to highlight. The first one is wind farms. So AES is a Fortune 500 company in the States. It needs constant inspection of the propellers and the wind farms. That's got two challenges. One's it's hazardous to climb, spinning propeller. There's lots of driving required as well. So drones now do this work. They fly across, they look at, take pictures of all the propellers and what have you. So not only do they avoid a whole bunch of hazardous work, oodles of hours, but they minimise the amount of carbon emissions just from the driving, which sounds quite straightforward and there mustn't be much driving, but there is. There's $10 million in benefits associated with that. You can't do that without cloud. Again, AI, processing image, all sitting on top of that platform. The other one that's not up here, which I think is really cool, is improving agricultural productivity. So with this one, crops can be really easily wiped out in Australia and overseas by disease. It's really hard to pick up that disease quickly. So what drones do is fly across and they look at the refracted light, so the UV and the infrared, and based on what type of light's coming back, essentially, they can detect a healthy grain from an unhealthy grain well before we can. Again, UV and infrared light we can't see. Therefore, minimising the amount of disease spread and quickly diagnosing problem areas, and also working out where to put water. So for those drought areas, really important. Again, cloud. Can't do that without cloud. Big amount of processing and data. So, what does the future hold? Actually, I'll go back one before you read that. So, the Clean Cloud report told us that 50% of Australia and New Zealand companies are planning to adopt those types of technologies in the next couple of years. So, the opportunity to fully leverage cloud to help with sustainability is only just being tapped into, which is both exciting and frustrating. Because there's a huge opportunity to do so much more. And we know that only 7% of Australian businesses have fully transitioned to cloud, but we do know that 97% of those businesses that use cloud report sustainability benefits. So we need to merge the two together. the business case is definitely there, and what can we do about it? So there's a few key actions. One, most businesses, not tech so much, don't know the engine that Ferrari is sitting there, what it can do. So there's a big education, this is kind of step 1 and 2, around, number 1, getting the sustainability teams to work with like your technology teams. At the moment, they're siloed and there's a disconnect. Increasing that collaboration between the specialist teams can bridge that divide and help power through and get some of these use cases stood up. And kind of that second point is around get some POCs running, demonstrate how it might work. 4 in 10 businesses identified lack of knowledge around what cloud can do. Not even just in sustainability. The third one there is quantify the environmental benefits. Basically monetize the impact of carbon emissions. 28% of the firms that we looked at said one of the biggest barriers to adopting more cloud tech is that the cost of carbon emissions is not considered when decisions are made. So if we include it, it'll definitely change the dial and reframe that thinking from a cost and tech initiative to a sustainability one. And number 4 is KPIs around sustainability are coming. They're definitely embedded in most CXOs' KPIs right now, but essentially they will be filtering down. It's a challenge because the benefits to doing and achieving ESG goals are long-term, but you have to invest in it now. And sometimes businesses are caught because the investment's so much at the moment, but there's no short-term gain. 3 years gain. There's 5 years or more. So there has to be a recognised balance between the two. We know, though, that employee morale will improve. You will get more customers because a lot of Gen X, millennials, millennials will be coming through. What else? We also know that 61% of investors increase their investment allocation to companies that are really proud and excel in their ESG goals, which one of those key factors is going to be the tech, the cloud, the APIs that sit on top of it. So leveraging technology like cloud will help you deliver on those strategies and targets. It's no longer a conversation about cloud benefits, it's that sustainability one. What will I do? So personally, at Deloitte, I'm passionate about sharing this knowledge and standing up here and encourage you to please come and have a chat with me in the booth after. And I do this by wearing 3 hats. So number 1 is either get companies started on their cloud journey. Most of them are, but can help them if they're not. If they're on that journey, optimize, how do they scale? And then the second one is unlocking the power of cloud. It's like this. What can they do with that engine that's sitting there? And then third one is sustainability. Using that power in a different way. Getting everyone to think a bit differently. So before I get Mehdi to come up, if I could leave you with one thing, it would be to inspire you to take a closer look at how you could decarbonise parts of your business using the technology that you've already got. One way to do this is to take part in the Global Sustainable Digital Challenge. And since 2020, Apidays has run this challenge overseas, and it teaches and challenges product and engineering teams to lean in, look at the environmental impact, look at the way they design, look at the way they implement the digital products. And with that, Mehdi, if you want to come up and just fill in how it all works.
To give you a hint, thank you very much about that. Thank you, Charlotte. So over the last 2 years, thank you. So it's true, over the last 3 years, we've run in Europe a global digital sustainable challenge. The goal was a 3-month program for full teams, product, IT, business, together, and to do the specific set of workshops and trainings about how they can rethink their application and business according to eco-design principles. We will see what does that mean. But yeah, so the goal was really to understand the best practices. That's really the first goal. Match with current eco-design principles. Identify new practices. Engage stakeholders internally, like build internal communities that that will drive like these internal champions, right? And also like develop a full practice on a topic with actual results there. And so to make the proof in 3 months to help the company to actually onboard on the full program. So the main challenge, you know it, to continue on Charlotte's main presentation was really also Asia-Pacific centered, but let's say also globally. The carbon emissions of the ICT industry, like, will go quite high. It will go over the plane industry or the car industry, automotive industry, right? So again, we have a responsibility in that. So it was 3% in 2015. We estimate it will be 8% of global carbon emission in 2025. So yeah, it begins to be quite significant, right? So we need to be sure that the digital transformation goals are aligning with the energy transition goals, right? So and APIs and software and cloud as an important aspect for that. There's also one important thing just before we dive into what actually teams built during the challenges and what are the results. I just wanted you to talk about the Jevons paradox. Who is already familiar with Jevons paradox or rebound effect? Yeah? You want to explain? No, I'm joking. The thing, so the Jevons paradox is that when something becomes a commodity, we consume more about it. We consume more of it, right? When the price comes cheaper or easier, we consume more of it. So at the end, we do more, but we spend more, right? And we do a lot more, but we still spend more, right? And so there is an aspect of the Jevons paradox called the rebound effect, is that what we save, we consume it directly. To give you an aspect of the rebound effect, it's people who go running and say, I spent like 200 calories, I will eat a muffin, right? That's direct rebound effect, right? You lost nothing. Yeah, you got the opportunity to eat a muffin, but at least you lost no calories, right? So that's the idea. So how we can be sure we don't do that, what we will save for an ICT emissions, we will keep it, right? So this is a mindset there, because some people may say, oh, great, we saved a lot of money, let's respend it somewhere else. No, let's just save it, right? Let's just save these emissions. So the Sustainable Digital Challenge, I will just give you some results of some teams, some stories too. So that was a team who really tried to solve, it was an insurer in France, but they checked the website, how many actions could have been saved or solved, how many clicks, whatever that was loading different pages or the advertisement on the page, right? And actually, they reduced the carbon footprint of the page by 51%, right? It's small, but it's small. It's important according to the page. It's small. It's just one web page. We have billions, but still, they understood that. And actually, the main feedbacks is that the page was better. It was faster to display. The experience was better, less clicks and everything, So that's the benefit. And we will see that actually every time you think about eco-design principles, reducing carbon emissions, actually you improve the experience, the app, the code, the infrastructure, and the hardware, right? So this is really the learning that we've seen. They did that on the back end, right? Also, they were able to reduce number of calculation. Infrastructure, they were able to share some useless memory that they got, right? So just to give you, on the full life cycle, it's a full job, right? Another one I liked, it's a retailer. But they tried to reduce carbon emissions, so they audited the website, and they found that sometimes when you check out a product page, there is a pop-up banner, an advertisement of the product you're looking for. Doesn't make any sense, right? You're already it's like you look for Google Maps on Google, and you have a Google Maps advertisement, like it's on Google, which is so this kind of weird stuff. But the thing is, yeah, they found us, say, okay, that's weird. Why we display an advertisement with all what it comes through to a product the person is looking at, right? It should be a recommendation to something else, right? So, and they checked, and they did the work, and they found that they could save 500 million API call per day, right? 500 million API call per day, so 15 billion call per month. That reduced their API management invoice, their cloud API management invoice too. That's also a benefit. But just to tell you, like, by auditing the code for carbon emissions, actually they were just auditing for good practice, right? And they were able to find that or like that. But they decided to not display another ad, and they just decided to not display anything because the person was there on the product directly, right? Another one, on the hardware side, some teams decided, following actually the processes they were doing and everything, they decided to go on a specific ARM64 processors. Right? They found that because of analyzing the code and the processes, that actually that was the processors that were the most efficient for the calculation they were doing in the processes. So they moved there, and at the end they have an energy gain of 60% globally, right, on AWS, right? The efficiency gain was 20% of the speed, but the energy was 60%, right? So again, it's a challenge where you really rethink your whole application and stuff according to these principles. Just some fails, I'll tell you some fails. The company tried to cut VMs, like to shut down VMs at night and restarting VMs in the morning, right? Like in websites in the 90s, right? Yeah, it didn't work. Like, it was mostly costly to restart them, right? Also, what another company tried, yeah, they made what they call green apps tests. That means every new major release, right, they had to reduce by 5% the carbon emission of the next release, right? So it was a build that has to pass, and they were checking the build they even built a tool called Argonaut. It's a tool to check that every release is actually not spending more, at least you put the limit, about how much carbon emission you are spending. Let's say it was really hard, 5% was too much, it was quite hard to sustain, but at least now they have a tool where they can say, okay, we can at least not augment the carbon footprint feature for the same type of feature at every release, right? Yeah, some companies also thought about like how we can reuse hardware, you know, like not always buying new hardware, but how. So they work with a company called Back Market. It's a retailer that just do reused hardware, and so they try to have employees buying that type of hardware versus always the new ones, And actually, with the COVID-19. Because of the chip shortage, actually, they were able to have their computer faster than if you wait for the Apple one that will come in 6 months, right? So just to give you some examples. So some winners, an insurance company, Allianz, global insurance company, railway company, Yves Rocher, which is a beauty shop company. Again, mostly because they were able to reduce carbon footprint, but actually improve global software practice, design practice, cloud practice, right? And it comes with the benefits, with side benefits, right? When you think about the carbon emission, actually you think about everything else, so you do a better job. So again, people came for the carbon emissions, but they went back with design, with code optimization, architecture, savings, and hardware improvements. So again, the program is about what? Teams, full teams, right? Don't just take team, product teams. It has to be on all topics. Mentors, mentors to be able to advise and be there to tell what are the best practices. And judges, just because it's great to have a prize at the end and have a kind of ceremony and gather, right? Just to say, it's really about UX, code, the workshops, data management, architecture, cloud architecture, right? And hardware even for some companies. So it's really, really rethinking the whole stuff. So the program, really the workshop, we have specific workshops, digital product design, sustainable architecture, sustainable data management, sustainable code and tooling, right? Again, these are the defined workshops that are part of the program that actually managers or coders, architects, product managers are able to follow. Right, it's on site. It was during COVID, it was online, but yeah, it's also a time together to share. And what we found, actually, we had sometimes companies who were in the same market, like different insurers or banks. Some consulting companies were also a part of the game, and they were all contributing as a learning community, right? They were not competing yet, right? They were still, at this time, they were learning together and trying to improve. All the results are open and for all. Just to finish, so again, the impact we've seen, right, after 3 years, for all C-levels and all practitioners. So it was about culture, ESG effort culture, like how we can put that into the company. But we've seen some companies have shifted from ESG to main corporate culture, right? So that's the idea. The second one is like observability of code performance. When you audit, actually, you check, right? The FinOps, some companies had a FinOps practice, and then shifted to a GreenOps practice. So saving money and carbon, right? And actually, it works. When you save one, most of the time you save the other. Product management. Now, some product managers in the sprints or in the backlog, they have some insights which are obliged for checking carbon emissions. We've seen also internal green hat communities, black hat, white hat. So some communities say, we're green hats, and we will share what we do, evangelize internally, just to give you. So yeah, the community aspect of it. One thing we did not expect is the hiring attractivity. Some big corporations were saying, it's really hard to attract young, powerful, skilled talent with Java or stuff stack that is not as trendy, right? I like Java, but not everyone. The thing is, like this, we're saying, okay, it's true you will work on all type of technology or legacy systems, but you know what? You will be part of a pioneering team who try to reduce carbon emissions and share that with others. So we found that actually they were able to hire talent that they were not able to hire before. So that was a side effect that we did not expect. But actually, they were able to make the company a lot more attractive and not raising the pay, the payroll. And again, last but not least, carbon reduction. Again, it's small at the size of companies, but it's a start, right? And many people who have values, and who believe that carbon emission reduction and decarbonization of society is important, they were okay. Like I have values, but I remove them from me when I go at the office from 9 to 5, and I take my value back when I go home. Now they were able to be like aligned with their job, right, at least, and being able to improve and be listened for that. So yeah, we've seen also a lot of companies who felt the attractivity of their own company, of the company we're working for, that was higher, so some stickiness, right, into the turnover. So maybe, Charlotte, you want to come with me on stage to make maybe a quick announcement?
Yeah, so I hope you're sitting there thinking, that sounds awesome. I wish they'd bring it to Australia, because we are. So next year, woo, yep, clap. Early 2023, we will be looking to essentially activate what you've just seen on screen. We are very interested in knowing if your company might be considering something to take part in. So if you can either register via the QR code or come out at break to the Deloitte booth and register your interest, that would be fantastic. And with that,
thank you, Charlotte.
We're done. So I guess Q&A.
Yeah. Sol.
Thank you. Okay, so we're happy to take questions from the audience. I guess while we're waiting, I've got a question. Charlotte, you mentioned the challenge that there was no short-term business benefit in any of this stuff. So how do you get it visible in an organization? I kind of find that a little shocking in this day and age, but what's the reality out there? How do we get this onto the agenda at the C level?
Oh gosh, it's a good question. So how do we make it more attractive for a business potentially to invest in ESG, cloud, sustainability in the short term? Well, there's a carrot and a stick. The stick's going to be the KPIs that are coming, and the carrot's going to be what's happening globally. APAC is behind EMEA. It's behind the US. And if it continues to be behind, it's hard to catch up. Yeah. So it's an educational exercise. Plus the other stick is regulatory, the government, 2030 net zero targets. So it's a blend, but it requires underneath. So like I said, employee morale will go up if your company is promoting sustainability in any way. You'll get a lot more stakeholders on the customers on the other side. That's proven. So it's kind of reflective on, I guess, all of us to help that message.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, like you said, Mehdi, bring your values to work. And,
yeah, that was helping. And as I was saying, HR short term, HR departments say we're more attractive. CIO said we made an audit on the apps and we know with a lot of observability. The VP engineering say, okay, we checked code performance and we make code reviews more, so we see more stuff. The CFO say the bill is down, right? And what I can add, so CIO, CFO, yeah, I think that's really good. And so, but let's say the C-levels were already at the first step, supporting just because of these first results. Of course, the end results, it should be shared by all, but we've seen actually direct results after 3 months, and so it's spread inside the companies.
And I think, yeah, I was reading the white paper about this, and I was really struck by how there's such a multi-sided view of these products, and looking at things like the product design, how we design the user journey through the web pages to improve the experience, reduce the footprint, the back-end design, all about how you store and utilize your data, the tech stacks that you use, maybe going from a traditional JVM to a compiled Java, compiling Java into source code, into bytes, etc., as opposed to bytecode. So there's really facets in there for everybody in the stack, which I think is really interesting, and tearing down those silos that we all have in every organisation. I think it's a really great way to rethink the ways that we work. So I'm very excited by that aspect of it.
It's really excited too, but again, let's remind that it's an effort that has to be, of course, beyond IT, as you were saying, right? It's a global effort. It's one part of the job that is needed. So we will not save the planet just because of we do like a serverless versus a non-serverless or whatever. But this is at least the part of what the IT people can do, right? So yeah, everybody has to do their part of the job.
Yeah, and I think it's about becoming intentional rather than unintentional, right? Blinkers on.
So there's, I might pipe on that one, greening the code. So like you said, you can write this or you could write this to do the same amount. That will make a difference. There's moving the workloads around, which most cloud providers can do automatically to run on a data center at that time that's carbon-free or renewable energy, things like that.
Yeah, we have a question.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Great talk. Two-part question maybe. What role do you think offset systems like carbon credits play? And secondly, are businesses just moving their responsibility to cloud providers, when we're hosting and expecting them to do the offset for us?
That's a great question. So carbon offsets are going to die. It's just essentially you're not reducing and you're not eliminating carbon. They're okay for now. Most of the cloud providers, like Google, will be carbon-free by 2030. It's pretty significant. So none of their data centers or operations will run on anything related to carbon, which is different to renewable. Microsoft and AWS will be, I think, 100% renewable by 2025. So to answer that second part, you can make it the problem of the cloud providers, but fundamentally the culture and FinOps will still be part of like your tech environment. Yeah, does it help?
Yeah, it's great, thanks.
Okay, one question down there.
I think we all need to make the cultural change to move towards green sustainability, but are we at risk of just moving our infrastructure to cloud and not really seeing the benefit? We're just moving the costs, moving the expenses. Like, do we really only realise the volume or the scale at volume when everybody does it,
That's a great question. So the lift and shift mentality was what happened, and what a lot of companies now are going, oh my God, the cost of cloud is actually not stacking up to the business case because they've literally just lifted and shifted. So any one of those R's hasn't been, the refactoring hasn't happened, etc. So the optimization is definitely one part of it. Would it only be if all of us moved? Yes and no. So we all, every company needs to get on the bandwagon, because if you're not, you'll have that carrot stick mentality. But every little increment matters. I mean, when I'm putting out the recycling, I'm like, is this really going to matter if I put the coffee cup here or here? But like if everyone does it the wrong way, then we don't make any difference at all. So, baby steps.
Also, please.
Good morning. Thank you for your research on the topic so far. Largely what makes the transformation possible is like education and observability of the impact of all the infrastructure and the code and all the tooling that we rely on. In your study over the years, did you see a shift in the amount of data publicized within the tooling, not just kind of advertised via the big players in infrastructure managers, but the tooling to show what the impact was or could be?
Do you want me to go first and then?
Yeah,
So yeah, every cloud provider and Salesforce and Oracle and the rest will now has some kind of observability or reporting on what your workloads are pretty much doing, what your carbon footprint is. Has that changed? 100% yes. That didn't even used to be on their radar, and now it's very much front and centre. Did you want to?
Yeah, no, at least one of the example we got. So in Europe, it was sponsored by Google Cloud, even if we had the AWS guys or Microsoft guys there too. But and actually, just to tell you, with Google, we worked hard to have some data, right, about their data centers, right, that they could share us as a kind of a draft, so we can teams could make better calculation. Also, how much of renewable was at this time during the electricity network, right? So some company like Electricity Map or others were also contributing into that. So to actually make the real calculation, and so it's funny because Google asked the energy providers, look, we want to know what's going on exactly at this time of the day, so we go and make calculation, so we can count the carbon footprint of the cloud, right? So it's spread, right? And big actors like AWS, Microsoft, or Google, big cloud providers, can actually make the pressure to actually have observability not just inside a company but all over the whole network. So yeah, just to tell you, it's still in draft, but customers pay the bill, right? So customers have power, and if customers put pressure on the cloud provider, they're customers of energy providers, so they will put pressure, and at the end you have the full observability, and you can make really, really the right decisions, not just on your own, let's say, a view of the market, but on the whole. So yeah, just to tell you a little bit how it has happened over the last 3 years with the relationship with cloud providers.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have now. One more up the back.
It's not actually a question. I just wanted to add to that, if I may, if that's all right. Sure. My name's Day. I'm with Deloitte as well, so just a little bit. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to say that, as you were saying, are we gathering more data around this stuff? And yes, all the cloud providers are definitely focusing on gathering that data so that they can apply some insights to it. And the more that data is available to each business who is actually on the cloud, and obviously cloud allows for that data to be available to them based on the services that are there, they can make those decisions. And then it comes back to that culture change that we all really need to bring together to actually enact on what are we learning, what are the insights that we're actually gathering from all of that data. And the tools that are being provided by the cloud providers, the ones that are being developed as we speak, that are going to give us a little bit more of direction, potentially, on how to take advantage of that data is really important. So like cloud footprint in Google Cloud, letting you know how much carbon your services or your business is actually producing, and how can you then use that to say, well, that's not really doing what I'm wanting anyway. How do we change? How do we make that better? Excuse me. But more and more of these tools are coming to the market. So obviously, it's good to keep up on what's coming along, and how do we actually utilize that data better? to improve our business. Sorry.
Great. No apologies at all. Great comment. Thank you very much.
I would just add one more comment quickly. Also, one of the good impact of the challenge was also to have like a self-defense for understanding, you know, let's say the environmental pitch, right, about ICTs. Just for example, I use the term green IT. We use the term green IT, but we have to understand what is green or what maybe not be green. We use zero carbon, means often compensated carbon, so it's nothing in zero carbon, it's compensated. What does it mean 100% renewables, right? How we identify that. So again, the industry is also giving words that we use because they're easily understandable. But by participating, you will also understand what does that mean, so you can really make your own opinions and decisions also on what's happening, right? So it's really a program for education, and I'm really glad that Deloitte is investing into that program with Apidays, because the education of managers is extremely important. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. Obviously, we've had some great questions and engagement.